Good afternoon. I'm Paul Liptz, Educational Director of the Saltz Center of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. It's Tuesday, October the 13th at 1 p.m. We're at the moment of a very difficult situation. We had intended to conduct a webinar of a different nature, but as a result of the serious situation in Israel at the moment, we've changed our topic. A few words about the Saltz Center and the World Union for Progressive Judaism. The Saltz Center is the educational branch of the World Union based in Jerusalem, and we carry out a number of very important and significant seminars designed for our worldwide clientele, which may interest you people watching me. Firstly, we have the Butel Lay Leadership Seminar. We have the Bergman Jewish Educator Seminar, the Roswell Social Justice Seminar, a seminar for legal professionals, an Israeli study color, a Poland-Israel mission, and many more activities. We represent various Jewish communities in some 50 countries of the world. We had intended to speak about events of progressive Jews in Europe. However, as a result of the situation in the last 5 days in Israel, we decided to change the topic and discuss some of the events which are going on here. In the last 5 days, there have been over 20 attacks around Israel, most of them in Jerusalem. Today, there have been 3 very serious attacks with a number of deaths. We are right in the middle of a very, very complex situation, and I would be the last one to be able to project or predict exactly what is going to happen. What has happened so far today is that there have been a number of very problematic events pretty much around the country. In a small city in the Sharon area, in the Ra'anana city, there was an attack on the local population. 2 people were injured. Not far from the World Union offices here in Jerusalem, in the East Talpiot area, there was an attack on a bus, and there have been some very other problematic events all around the city. Jerusalem is very tense. I came in from Tel Aviv a short while ago, and coming into the city, coming into the central bus station, and then traveling on the light rail, one really felt the tensions in Jerusalem. There are a very large number of security people all around. Let us give a bit of the background to what's happening and allow me just to return to historical events just for a moment. On the map behind me, you see the green line, the pre-June 1967 line, where in the initial stages, both Gaza and the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, were under foreign control. Gaza was under Egypt, and the West Bank was under Jordan. As a result of the 6-Day War, Israel took over these 2 bits of territories, as well as the Golan Heights, which had been under Syria. The crisis at the moment is particularly the area of the West Bank, dominated largely by Palestinians with some additional 400,000 Israeli Jews. And more than anything else, this large red dot over here in the middle of the map, which is Jerusalem, a formerly divided city, and now perhaps one of the most complex cities of the world, maybe one of the most complex cities in history, where Jerusalem has been united as a result of legislation in June 1967, and this is really the most important crisis area. One can explain the tensions in a large number of ways, and each thesis has perhaps a counter-thesis. It is clear that the Palestinian population, those people who are not Israeli citizens, have for an extended period of time felt extremely frustrated. From their perspective, there has been no movement on any level at all, neither in the realm of political change, nor, for most of them, a defined economic development in their lives, and certainly with very little outside impact, the religious component comes to the fore within Israeli society and within the lives of the Palestinians. The focal point of Jerusalem is clearly the Temple Mount. Part of the Temple Mount is under Israeli Jewish control. That means the western and southern walls. But Temple Mount itself is under Muslim control, under the Waqf, which is the religious controlling authority, an area which is both open to Muslims and Jews, as well as tourists from around the world. But essentially what seems to cause most of the tension is when certain Israeli citizens, largely from the religious right, go up to the Temple Mount and ignite a situation which is anyway extremely delicate. As an interaction of both those Palestinians who are interested in conflict and who would like to move to a third intifada, as well as certain factions from the religious right, those groups very, very easily ignite a tremendous level of tension. That is really the background of what's going on. At the present time, much of the crisis that we are experiencing is based on lone wolf attacks. It is very difficult to know exactly who they are. In some ways it compares in a different reality with the situation in the United States, where you have regular people, so-called, who go onto college campuses with guns and revolvers, large guns and revolvers, and shoot innocent citizens. It's hard to understand who these people are. In the Israeli case, it's also at the moment, by and large, lone wolf attacks. There is no doubt support coming from various factions, particularly the Hamas group, which exists in Gaza, which is under the control of Hamas, which has had some problematic interaction with Israel. And yesterday and a few days earlier, there was a movement of people from Gaza, Hamas supporters apparently, into Israel. But by and large, the Israeli Hamas Gaza situation is not the most important. Let us come back to what seems to be happening at the moment. If we look at what's going on in the Arab world and the general Middle East, this region is in total crisis. The world, by and large, has moved away from looking at the Palestinian issue. And as a result of events going on in Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and various other parts of the extended Middle East, the world is essentially dealing with some very different kind of issues. Among them, clearly, the recent intervention of Russia into Syria. The Palestinians recognize that as much as their agendas are not on the world, in the World Forum, they're losing any kind of control. And so in trying to understand what's happening, essentially been happening here in the last week, what we actually have to understand is that it's a combination of events in the wider Middle East, the immigration issues developing in Europe, Russian involvement in Syria, and you put all that into the salad bowl together with deep Palestinian frustration, and that seems to be more or less what you have. What are the Palestinian goals? Like the Israeli Jewish population, we are not talking about a homogeneous group. There are clearly groups within the Palestinian population, as there are within the Israeli Arab Palestinian population, who regard this crisis, these events going on, as totally destructive to absolutely everyone in the Middle East. However, we know that on so many occasions in history, all you need is a very small number of people, few hundred, few thousands, who become actively involved, who are doing what is happening at the moment, and that is to carry out stabbing attacks. In a strange way, Israel can almost deal better with a war, where the lines are clear, When your civilian population feels threatened, it is much more difficult. This, on the one hand, looks extremely depressing. However, there are some other very encouraging signs which can even come out of these kind of difficult situations. We see from the social media a very significant number of people who are Arab Israeli citizens writing in their Facebooks or in other social media formats saying what is happening is to our disadvantage. An important statement by the Arab mayor of Nazareth, an important Arab city in the northern part of the country, was a very dramatic moment within the Israeli Arab society. He basically turned around to the Arab politicians and said, "You are trying to destroy the economic growth which we have in Nazareth." And so there are definite divisions within the Arab community. They are not all one, just as within the Palestinian society, either in Gaza or in the West Bank, there are different voices. The challenge in crisis is not to put everyone into one salad bowl. What happens in these kind of crises seems to be that you look at the other as one total homogeneous group. The mayor of Nazareth and a very significant number of Israeli Jewish politicians have been saying very clearly, let us not make the other an enemy. And I think at this very tough moment of history, those brave voices, be they either Jewish or Arab, who are standing up and saying, we do not see the other as the enemy. We are aware of the tensions. We are aware of the tremendous danger that radical people and radical subgroups can have in igniting the present situation and making it so volatile that it might just extend to parameters that we do not know how to cope with. It is my firm belief that right within the Palestinian Arab world, within the Israeli Arab world, and within the Israeli Jewish society, the overwhelming majority of us are searching for ways on what to do and how we can defuse the situation. I want to end with some of the possibilities. The right-wing possibility is essentially annex the West Bank, control the millions of Palestinians who live both in the West Bank, Judea, Samaria areas, and incorporate those Palestinians who live in Jerusalem. It is the opinion of the majority of the Israeli voting population that in the long run is not a good idea. It seems to be that most Israelis, and we're not talking about the emotive seconds and hours that we're involved in at the moment, but most Israelis on a quiet day are in fact searching for a better reality. Is it separation, a two-state solution, which is not ideal from any perspective? From an Israeli perspective, we go back to the narrow lines that we had pre-1967, and our border becomes a large and very vulnerable border. But the question is that better, where Palestinians basically control their lives and the Jewish majority and Arab minority citizens in a democratic society control their environments? Think tanks at the moment are exploring additional ideas. Some people are talking about a confederation because separation doesn't seem to be viable or even wanted by certain factions. Can we start developing new ideas? This is a moment for creative thinking. This is a moment for ensuring that fear does not bring about hate. And this is clearly the moment when all sane human beings recognize the tremendous damage that small radical groups can bring to any situation. Thank you from Jerusalem.